A three-sport athlete, played with Peyton Manning, ended up winning the national championship. Then he started D1 training. Welcome to the show, Will Bartholomew.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
What was the inspiration for starting D1?
I found my home in the weight room. I really wanted to create a place of inspiration and motivation.
What are your parenting goals?
I always tell my kids, I'm here to teach you the right way, not to tell you what to do. I never want to be in the position where I want it more than my kid.
What's the optimal off-season and in-season times that a kid should be working out?
Different sports have different demands and different positions in different sports. Punter on a high school football team versus, offensive lineman is going to have different impact.
Parents instilling belief in their kids is huge. How specifically did they do that?
It didn't matter if I won the state championship or lost it. That belief system just made me just want to go compete.
Are your kids like you? Was there challenges in trying to motivate them if they weren't like you?
My daughter, she had the discipline. My middle son, he didn't know if he wanted to play. My third one, he's got that competitive drive.
You played with Peyton, and then Peyton left. Y'all win a national championship. You throw that in his face at all?
No, absolutely not.
There is one person and one person only who will define your kid's dreams, and that's your kid.
If you want something, you have to work for it.
Your ability to counter a weapon is paramount to your game development.
Or just losing perspective on what youth sports are really about.
Teach your kid the value of winning, but not at all costs.
Get a lot of questions on when an athlete should start strength training.
If your athlete follows my protocol, they are going to have better energy than ever before.
They can't come to you when you're born and say, you got character. You got to build that.
You can win, but if you're not really impacting lives, I think you lose.
Welcome back to Pure Athlete. I'm Britt. I'm here with Brad, and we got a great show today, but we're missing somebody.
Yeah, we wanted to focus on athletic training, and Jeff wanted to kind of let the two athletes really host this show because I think he felt a little intimidated with this environment, so we wanted to handle this and not have him here. Truthfully, he's moving today. He's doing the family thing, so we kind of carry the weight.
Yeah. We hate not to have him here today, but we got a great show today. I'm super excited about it. If for those of you who are watching, you notice that we're not in studio. If you're listening, we're at a D1's training facility here in Brookhaven, Georgia. We're going to talk a whole lot more about that this episode. But anyway, we've got a great guest today, an expert in training. And I think for all you folks who are out there that are looking at, hey, how do I help my kid reach their peak performance? Well, this is a big component of it, big piece of it, and we want to talk about it a little bit today. So we're excited. Our guest today, let me tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll introduce him. But he grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, three-sport athlete, and we'll dig into that just a little bit here in a moment. But went on to University of Tennessee, played with Peyton Manning, ended up winning a national championship there. And then went on to start an NFL career, but some knee injuries took care of that. But then he started D1 training, and that's what we're going to spend a lot of time talking about today as an expert. So welcome to the show, Will Bartholomew.
Oh, thank you guys. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
I tell you, we almost got to have a part two. We were talking a little bit off camera about this adrenaline junkie type lifestyle that you live, and I think that's a second episode I think we need to get to because this guy's led a pretty eventful life.
A lot of stories, but we've got a lot to talk about today. But I've got to start with, I mentioned at the outset that you won a national championship at UT. Yeah. You played with Peyton Manning. It's interesting to me that you played with Peyton and then Peyton left. Next year, you become team captain. Y'all win a national championship. You're still buddies with him. Do you throw that in his face at all?
No, absolutely not. Peyton, man, he is one of those guys that, you know how you have somebody in your life that believed in you at an early age? Peyton's, several years older than me. And when I stepped on that campus, you knew he was the guy.
He was the man.
Not just, not just because of him being the quarterback and all the stats, but because of the way he carried himself and went about his work ethic. And he only wanted to be around people that were like that.
Yeah.
And that was just such a good example for me. And so when I saw that, I was like, man, that's what I want to be. I want to be the guy people look to and go, man, I want to match his work ethic. I want to, do those types of things. And so, man, it was just a great example. And then he believed in me early on in the D1 days, and not only put his name behind D1, but he also put money in. And that just means the world to me that he's believed in us all these years. And we're still partners together. We still do the Manning Passing Academy every year. And so he's just been a great friend and a loyal business partner.
So he leaves in 1997, right? That was his
Yep.
senior year. Kind of got robbed of the Heisman that year.
Yeah.
I know you probably understand.
I think so.
Yeah, I do too. So, I mean, you lose one of the greatest college players of all times, one of the best professional players of all times. You're going into 1998. You're named a captain. I mean, what did you guys do to kind of overcome that loss enough to win a national championship the next year?
Small correction. I became captain a couple years later. So
okay.
98, I was the fullback on that team. And, I think that team epitomized like being a team, not a bunch of individuals.
Yeah.
You had a real leader on that team was a guy named Al Wilson, middle linebacker. And, man, he just brought the juice every day to practice. And every time we stepped on the field, people had a belief in him. So much so we're playing Arkansas. We're down, about to lose the game at the end. And he's running up and down the sidelines going, I'm getting the ball back. I'm getting the ball. I mean, it was one of those, movie scenes. And they went in there, and we got the ball back.
Yeah.
And marched down and scored, and that helped us end up going undefeated. But, yeah.
Well, speaking of Al Wilson, we had dinner last night.
Yeah.
Jeff did join in on that, and a lot of stories being told. And I think Jeff asked you, maybe it was Brad, who was the toughest guy you blocked, and Al's name came up.
Yeah, I mean, I got a couple guys like, on not in practice, but he was the guy in practice every time I showed up. It was, you better bring your hard hat. I think I told you guys last night's story of. I was a freshman, and we did a little one-on-one blocking drill, and he had a cast on his wrist. And I mean, he did that little chop step, and then he hit me with the left right in my neck and knocked me down to the ground. And it was a good welcome to SEC football,
Well, since then you've built an amazing business in D1, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go along. But before we do, I want to kind of hear you share a little bit about your story growing up in Nashville. Sure. Big sports guy, obviously. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it starts with our families, right? And my parents. My dad was a West Pointer, played in the 60s at Army, and then served our country over in Vietnam and moved us to Nashville. And so we had a long lineage of kind of meathead fullbacks, My grandfather played it at University of Tennessee, my dad at West Point, and then, you got myself and my brother who played both at Tennessee, but all played the same position, right? So for me, you have that kind of disciplined upbringing. Maybe that's where a little bit of my craziness comes in. And then my mom was an ordained minister. So you talk about, a beauty queen ordained minister. She was runner-up Miss USA. So you got this really interesting growing up with in the Bible, creating these massive belief systems in yourself. I know we were sharing a little bit about that last night. I'm a huge believer in the human being able to craft your own future, and it's based on your beliefs.
Yeah.
And to me, I had such a strong belief system early on, and I think it's because of, my mom had me I thought I could do anything. I thought I could, I was a gymnast early on. I could do like tumbling and backflips and all these things, and then all of a sudden I grew, and it was like, man, then I became a wrestler. And all those things just served me super well for, football and all the things beyond.
So I'm curious, Will, your parents obviously were high achievers.
Yeah.
West Point, contest and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. So that was a little bit of a dynamic in your family, but you said that they instilled this belief system in you. Belief is one of our pillars. Parents instilling belief in their kids is huge. How specifically did they do that?
By example, right? So everything in their life, my dad started a law firm. He did, he was the Titans lawyer at one point. He did such big business, and you would watch him, and it was just watching, watching. And, I can think back on some of the nuggets that he would give me, but it was really just seeing who he was as a man. And then same with my mom, she just, had that, that love that helps you like go, man, I can go accomplish whatever because she's going to love me no matter what. Like it didn't matter if I won the state championship or lost it. Like she's going to love me no matter what. And so for me, that belief system just made me just want to go compete. And then also I will say I'm a third kid. I got to give my older brother some credit because my older brother, he created that competitiveness. In every wrestling tournament he lost, I wanted to win. Every football game he didn't win, I was going to go win. And so it was just like, man, having that competitiveness to just serve me really well.
So you went to MBA in Nashville, right? Montgomery Bell Academy?
Montgomery Bell Academy, yes.
Very well-known school. You played multiple sports. Like, talk about some of your goals. Like, when did you start making goals? How old were you when you started thinking about college and things like that?
Yeah, it was pretty late. So I had a tragic knee injury in 8th grade. So believe it or not, I was a scat back. I was like this little fast, quick. I weighed 101 pounds in 8th grade. And I was the tailback, and I was running down the field, and I cut on air, and my knee tore. And for an 8th grader to tear an ACL, that's very rare. And so, anyway, end up having surgery. All of a sudden I'm hitting puberty and I'm growing. And so my freshman year, and I always remember everything about wrestling weight, I was 160. So I went from 101 to 160.
Wow.
And, I was a little pudgy, I've been sitting around. I hadn't been able to do any cardio. And so all of a sudden, I fell in love with the weight room because I had a strength coach who pulled me in the weight room, and he was on the power team. Y'all remember the power team? They would break chains in the name of Jesus, And so,
were you on the power team for a while?
Yeah, I just missed it.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. I knew you were close. I thought you may have been on that
So
team.
this guy's my strength coach. Yeah. And, I'm doing back squats, and he's looking at me, you could do all things through Christ who strengthens you, And so, my body started transforming, and the sports, I was never really I was a good, okay wrestler, but then, that kind of propelled me really doing well in wrestling. And then, but I loved football. Football was always my love. And so we had some great teams at NBA, and I loved it because I got to play both sides of the ball. I played fullback / a little bit of tailback and middle linebacker, outside linebacker. And so I was one of those guys. I never wanted to leave the field.
Yeah.
When did you think that you had a shot to play college? And what was your recruiting story there?
Yeah. So, since NBA, we're an academic school first, gentleman scholar athlete, athlete last. And so I never really envisioned that I could play D1, big time D1 football.
Yeah.
I always, I played against some guys that done that. I'm like, man, I'm not them. And so I didn't get really recruited until my senior year. Before my senior year, my dad drove me to 5 different colleges, and I handed my VHS tape to these coaches. And Furman was my first offer. And then Wake Forest, and it started snowballing a little bit. And what happened to me was my senior year, I played against some guys that were really highly ranked, and I played really well. And Tennessee, I played a Brentwood Academy team, and I think they had 5 guys going, 3 of them going to Tennessee, and then the other 2 going big-time D1 ball. And I had a great game the next day. Is when Coach Fulmer offered me, and that was at the end of the season of my senior year.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a story of resilience right there and not giving up. And we tell kids all the time at our schools, your film is what's most important. They worry so much about contacts and what are coaches going to do. And you want your coaches to give you good recommendations. They worry about camps, and they worry about measurables. But, man, knowing a lot of college coaches, the film doesn't lie. And
That's
the
right.
film will get you noticed. And things like body language, things like what kind of teammate you are, things how you play when you're down big, that type of thing. And that's just a great example of that. Them showing, hey, here's my tape. Look what I do on the field.
Yeah, to me, and I'm as you guys know, we were talking a little bit about this last night with my son. I think there's this hype machine that's kids are thinking they have to be in.
Yep.
Like, hey, if I'm not getting the stars, I'm not getting recruited, I'm not. And to me, that is the last thing you should focus on. The first thing you should focus on is yourself and what are you doing today to get better? Because if you get better at each and every day, you're going to end up where God wants you to be.
Yeah.
And if you start like projecting, I think people don't want you when you're going, hey, I want the hype. I want the hype and the stars or whatever. And it's like, man, people don't want that.
Yeah.
People want grit. They want like somebody who's really going to go in and do the work. And so, when I look back on kind of the way it all played out for me, I had that doctor when in 8th grade, they told me like, hey, you might not be able to play high school football, not college, high school, because I tore in 8th grade. And that just set something off on me. And I was like, nope, my God's bigger than that. And my belief system's bigger than that. And so when you start talking about goal setting, it was early. I mean, I started in, 8th, 9th grade going, hey, I'm going to be somebody. Now, and then you're like, am I? You're like, it's not coming as easy as I thought, And so there were some pivotal things that, my parents led me in that I think helped me get to where I eventually got to.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a great story. And I want to continue that a little bit before we jump into talking specifically about training, because you mentioned your son.
Yeah.
And and your dad. You've got 3 kids, and they're all pretty accomplished athletically. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's been so fun watching my kids grow up in D1. Because my daughter had her 1-year-old birthday party at a D1. Couldn't afford the pump up place at the time, so we had the at D1, and so my daughter ended up having a coach all through high school, a private coach, and she played club soccer. She ended up playing at the University of Tennessee. She actually walked on the team, and the coach promised me, said, hey, we will tell her to leave the school if she's not going to play here. And so at the end of camp, he's like, hey, you're gonna be here. And so she ended up playing her freshman year, played all 4 years, just finished her college career. So that's awesome. Kind of crazy. I got a college graduate.
Yeah, getting old.
And then I have a sophomore who's at Vanderbilt, plays middle linebacker. So super fired up for the Vandy season.
Yeah, had a pretty good year.
Yeah,
real
pretty good year. Yeah, and you talk about a belief system shifting. They had a belief system shift this past year, and that they can beat anyone. And so, and then I have a sophomore in high school, a 16-year-old high school quarterback. Yeah, so he's a quarterback and basketball player, and so it's fun navigating those.
He broke the chain of fullbacks.
Yeah, I think that was my wife. My wife's like, hey, you don't have to be the guy who just runs into things. Yeah, he was actually a really good. So I didn't share my wrestling background. So I was fortunate enough to win the state championship, and I loved wrestling because of what it did for me in football.
Yeah,
it was like, man, if I was blocking somebody, I always felt like I knew leverage, I knew how to angles and all those things because of wrestling. And so I had my kids early on in wrestling, my middle linebacker and my quarterback, and my wife. My wife was at a wrestling tournament. This kid was good. He was a top 100 AAU wrestler, my son. And he got slammed by, I think, like the number 1 guy. And my wife was like, he needs to be a basketball player. And so he plays basketball, and that's helped him so much with playing quarterback, understanding spacing and timing and all of those things.
Was there ever a time, let me ask you this, did the kids share the same passion that you had? And there's always, sometimes you talk to athletes who have kids and like, hey, it was tough because I had this drive, I had this chip on my shoulder, and they were raised in a better environment or whatever. But are your kids like you, or was there challenges in trying to motivate them if they weren't like you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think, they're all different, right? I look at my daughter, she didn't, I don't necessarily think she had like the drive that I had. So I wouldn't like put it in that category, but she had the discipline and the work ethic. So there was some nuggets that she picked up. And then my middle son, he didn't know if he wanted to play or not wanted to play. And he got offered a preferred walk-on spot at Vanderbilt. And, he was a good high school player. And they saw him. They're like, hey, this kid's runs a 4.58 laser time. He's 6'2", 220. I mean, he might turn into something. And so, he's still figuring out his love. And my third one I relate to a lot just because he's got that competitive drive. He's got that, hey, I want to get up at 6 a.m. and go work. But he's still a 16-year-old, and he's still yet to be determined. And I'm living what you guys are talking about all the time, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So you're a big goal person.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what your goals are for your kids. What are your parenting goals, and where does sports fit into that?
My goals for my kids are make sure they have goals. That's it. For me, where they end up and how they end up there, I give that to God out there, and I'm not in control of that. What I'm in control of is coaching them that, hey, having goals and having a great belief system to get to those goals and building some habits that are going to serve you the rest of your life. That's what I'm here for. I always tell my kids, I'm here to teach you the right way, not to do the right, not to tell you what to do.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm here to teach you how to do it the right way. And the right way is subjective to everyone. But for me, like I never want to be in the position where I want it more than my kid. My kid's got to want it way more than me.
Yeah.
Well, love that.
We're going to transition here to D1 too, but they grew up this was their sandbox, right?
Yeah.
This was kind of, you said that your daughter's first birthday party was at D1, and did they ever was it just something they just gravitated to right away when they were around this environment, or did they kind of push back a little bit? Or gosh, what a great resource to have for your kids.
I don't think they ever push back. I think D1, we're founded on inspiration and motivation. That's kind of like the ethos. This is our why. We want to inspire and motivate athletes to reach their goals.
Yep.
That's why we're here. That's why these gyms exist. And a goal could be, hey, I just want to do 10 more push-ups, or lose a little body fat, or run a little faster, or not get made fun of on the practice field. That could be a goal. And so to me, the goals shift throughout time, right? And so for me, when they would go to D1 and they'd have a coach, and you would see like these words that come out like they're living it, like determination. I'd wake up, I'd be like, man, my kid's way more determined, and I love the word respect. They're definitely more respectful. And, they'll listen to instruction. And so that was always the real benefit of it, of having this type of training environment and having coaches speak into their life that are helping build that belief system. And that's what it's all about.
What was the inspiration for starting D1? Tell us that story.
The inspiration, there's kind of a couple backstories to it. So I mentioned my strength coach in high school that really kind of made me believe that I could create my body into whatever I wanted to. And then I went to the University of Tennessee, and we had an amazing strength staff there. A guy named John Stuckey was my head strength coach. He passed away, unfortunately. And this guy would get you thinking you could do whatever. And I found my home in the weight room and on that turf. Other guys, would say the field, inside Nayland. But for me, it was that weight, and I just loved it. I would wanted to go at 6, and I wanted to leave at 7 p.m. I would be there all day if I could. And that was just, I really, really enjoy just being in that environment and being around, some great teammates and that type of thing. And so that was really the inspiration. I wanted to recreate that for the middle school, high school kid. Because I look back and go, man, I didn't find that strength coach till high school. I was like, man, imagine if I found that strength coach in middle school.
Yeah.
And even a few years earlier, and like they could have been with me along the way, man, that would have been just such an impact. And so that's what it was founded upon. Now, there's definitely some different ingredients. Like I was watching the And One mixture. Y'all remember that from MTV? Yeah. Mm-hmm. White chocolate. Remember he was like, and I was talking to my college roommate, and I was like, man, I want to create a business gym where athletes come, and he was like, like D1, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like And1. That would be cool. The kids will think it's like D1. That's perfect. Yeah. And so that's where the name came up. And my cousin did the logo.
It's a good brand.
Yeah,
it's a great brand.
Yeah, and so for me, it was like I really wanted to create a place of inspiration and motivation. And I wanted it to be, and you've heard my background, I wanted it to be iron sharpens iron, right? I wanted it to be where you come in and it's tough. Don't get me wrong. Like working out's hard, but when you're around great people, we were talking about workout partners a little bit ago. Like, man, it just makes you want to show up. It makes you want to improve, and and to me, that's like what life's all about.
Yeah.
Well, we've been talking with you guys for a couple of months now.
Yeah.
I think, we love the fact that y'all's values align really almost perfectly with our values, and unlike most gyms, you guys are focused on young athletes. And so just for a little bit of context for our audience, because some people who are listening are super familiar with D1, because you got 131 locations around the country, and that's growing like crazy. But tell folks a little bit about the company and the gym and where they are and so on and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So our why, which I mentioned a minute ago, is to inspire and motivate athletes to reach your goal. So if you're an athlete out there, you're a parent out there, and you're like, man, I got a goal. Like, we want to be that place. When you see that brand, hey, that's where I go to reach my goal. And, how do we do it? We do it with, great coaches. So our coaches are world class. And you walk in, you'll get motivated and inspired by them, but you'll also follow a structured workout. We have a 5-star workout. Every workout follows this 5-star program, and this is, NSCA puts this out, which is the National Strength and Conditioning Association. You're going to come in, you're going to do a dynamic warm-up, and that dynamic warm-up, to me, is the foundation, and that is you're in military lines, you're getting coached, you're waking up the nervous system, and it's dynamic, right? It's not static. And you're building actually great habits when you do that dynamic warm-up, because you're going to work on your starts. Mm-hmm. You're going to work on your flexibility. You're going to work, and I just never want to glance over how important that dynamic warm-up is. And then you're going to go to performance. And performance, depending on what program you're in, could look like, hey, we're going to work on our 40-yard sprints today, so we're going to do max velocity on our assault treads, or we're going to work on our 40-yard start on the turf. Performance could look like, hey, today we'll work on explosiveness, and so we're going to do power cleans in the weight room. And then the next section is the strength part of the workout. We really want to build that foundational strength, which I think so many athletes need right now. The kids that are dominating have they have that foundational strength. Mm-hmm. We were talking about Diego Pavia last night, the Vanderbilt. That kid is powerful, and he can lift a lot of weight. And then we're going to do core and conditioning. We definitely always got to condition, but we want to do that post-performance and post-lifting. You don't want to condition first. Yeah. And the workout shouldn't be a full conditioning session. It's not your gas the entire time. This isn't a CrossFit WOD, because we're trying to develop athletic performance. And then we're going to do a cool down stretch. And to me, that is one of the most important parts of the workout as well. It's the beginning and end.
I hate the cool down.
The cool down stretch is so important.
I hate stretching, period. It's cool down.
Yeah, like when we get our age, I don't know about stretch, but we need it the most. Yeah. But yeah, we like to circle our athletes up. And this is a time of we going from military lines to going through something really hard together. We're going to circle up. We're going to do a cool down stretch, and we're going to have our coach preach motivation to them and talk about these words that are on the wall, like confidence, honor, accountability. And to me, that's what we're all about. And so that 5-star workout happens at every D1 location with world-class coaches. And, what do we do? We train people, in great facilities, but it's really about all those other little ingredients that make it really special.
Well, we love all the other ingredients. I want to dig in today a little bit, and part of why we wanted to have you on today is, you just established a lot of credibility in this space, and, our audience is out there and they're doing all kind of things to help their kids maximize their performance, and their kids are anywhere from 8 years old to 18 years old. So I'd like to, as an expert in this space, first of all, parents are spending tons of money on skills training.
Yeah.
And so many are, at least until older ages, are kind of ignoring the conditioning and strength training and just thinking it'll take care of itself. Tell us what the impact is of training, even at early ages.
Look, skill training is important. I don't want to minimize it at all, because an athlete, if you can learn how to kick a soccer ball better or throw a baseball or a football better, or all the different skills that you need, but you can max out your skill knowledge pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Pretty quick. Now putting in reps is a little different, but you can max out your knowledge. But your knowledge in the weight room, in your body, it's so dynamic and it's constantly changing that you have to be training constantly. I'm a huge believer of training in season. It's one of the things that I think separates, D1 athletes, the guys that come to us it's like, hey, if you're training in season, you're not going to, you're going to repair your body. And then 2, you're not going to lose all those gains you had in the off season. Mm-hmm. And I've always thought that separated me at the University of Tennessee. I was a big believer in training. This is in college now, 4 times a week, heavy. I trained 4 times a week, heavy, and was able to recover and play great in the game. And then I had my recovery day, and then I would get back at it. But I didn't have any injuries because of that. And granted, I had a ton of injuries early on, as I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And so I learned, hey, if my body's strong, I can go in and play this very contact position and not get injured. And so I think it's really important to be training kind of year round for these athletes. And you do need a season. It doesn't have to be a full sports season, but you need a season, a month, 4 weeks to 8 weeks, ideally 8, where it's only focused on training and developing that strength and that performance mindset. So then when you go back to your sport, you will play 1, 2, 3 times better.
So you're saying, we're in the era of, you got to play year round. I don't care what sport it is. That's the direction it's going in. You're saying that kids will benefit if they take a period of time off and do nothing but train.
Absolutely. If you just go back and to me, it was forced on me because I had knee injuries. Yeah. And all of a sudden, when you have a knee injury, you're like, okay, you have to train. But I think taking that time off to let your body repair, 1, 2, train it so that it can go back and perform better. Man, you're just going to have maximum amount of benefit from it when it comes to that season. And I think these athletes that are just wearing and tearing nonstop, your body is going to break down.
Yeah.
If you run your car 24/7, it's going to break down. You have to take it to the repair shop at some point and change the oil and do all the things. And so I just really feel like we talked about this a little bit last night, this society that we're in of hey, you got to keep up with the Joneses and be nonstop, playing ball. To me, it's no, you need a time to train.
Yeah.
And if you look at the athletes that have taken massive leaps, they stopped and they went and trained really hard.
If you have middle school or high school kids that play sports and you don't want to fundraise like me, we got you covered. My buddy Chris Carneal owns Booster. Chris?
We help schools and sports teams raise funds in a super fun and engaging way. In fact, the last 22 years, we've raised $750 million, and we can't wait to help you. Choose booster.com.
We've talked about taking periods of time off and the benefits for mitigating burnout. mentally, and then injury prevention and just recovery. But now you're taking it to another level and saying doing that and focusing on this will actually make you better when you come back. So
for sure. I mean, I can't. So it's really interesting. We have I always find it interesting. We train a lot of guys that go on to the NFL, so they'll come do combine training with us and whatnot. And we had a kid a while back who came from a big time Power 5 program. And in an 8-week period, he transformed his body.
Wow.
Transformed it so much so that he went and worked out for the NFL scouts. The college coaches were like raving about the kid, about what happened. And then the newspaper wrote an article like, how did he do that in just 8 weeks? And it's because he had been constantly playing. He had never really focused on it. And so like when I look at it, I'm like, man, if you could take that period and transform your body, all of a sudden you come back, you're a completely different athlete. Why wouldn't you do that every year?
Yeah, it frustrates as a high school athletic director. The coaches get frustrated. We get frustrated because these kids are so anxious to go play AAU or so anxious to go play a club sport. And you're not ready for that level. I mean, it's great that you're going to get competition and get to play, but it might be better for you to take some time off in this off season and do nothing but work on your body, get more explosive, get stronger, so that when you do have the opportunity to play at that higher level, you're able to be successful because you're putting yourself in a high competitive environment, and you may not be ready for it. And so, gosh, it's so frustrating, and it's so wonderful to hear you say that because we get so frustrated of these parents. So, they got to be playing, they got to be playing club, they got to be travel. You know what? Take a step back, work on your skills too, but work on your kid getting more explosive and getting more athletic. You talked about how they don't want to practice. We see kids don't want to practice in season. Our coaches don't push it enough, right? What's the optimal off season and in season times that a kid should be working out? A high school kid.
Yeah, so when you go to high school, and it depends on the sport. Let me also say this because different sports have different demands and different positions in different sports, right? Like a punter on a high school football team versus an offensive lineman is going to have different impacts. So general rule of thumb is the way I like to look at it is a high school athlete should be training with weights 2 times a week in season.
In season.
Out of season 4 times a week. I'll use my high school son right now. He's a sophomore in high school. In season, he lifted twice a week. And then right now he's playing basketball, and he's doing 2 lifting sessions a week, and he's doing 2 speed sessions a week. So he's actually going 4 times. Now, granted, he's not the starter right now on the basketball team. And so I'm like, hey, man, we got to use this time to develop your body. But we always got to monitor that to go, hey, we got to be fully recovered. So if you do get in the game, you can play. But then once basketball season ends, he will train 4 times a week, and we will hit weights and speed every 4 times a week, as well as he will ramp up his skill training then as well as throwing wise.
Do you see parents, do they understand that? Your clients coming here, they understand that number of workouts? Because I see that in terms of skill training and also in terms of sports development. They put in once a week or twice a week, and they think that's good.
From a parent perspective, I feel like a lot of people get caught up. You get caught up in the social media post and what everybody else is doing. And to me, it's like, okay, what are my kids' deficiencies? And then, hey, we're going to work on that. And then we're gonna be so. For instance, and once again, let's just say we're not doing well hitting, the baseball or whatever. Let's go get a hitting instructor, okay? But say you're doing pretty well there, but your power's not there. You got to go train.
Yeah,
you got to go train. So, I just think if every parent kind of sat back and goes, all right. Let's be completely objective, right?
Which is impossible for a parent.
It's hard. Look, my son, he had a great, I'm using my younger one right now. He had a great sophomore season, and he's asking me, Dad, why am I not getting these offers? Mm-hmm. He got his first D1 offer, but he's not getting these big offers. He had 2,100 yards as a sophomore. I mean, he's playing the biggest high-level football there is in Tennessee. And I'm like, look, the honest truth, son, is you haven't shown it to where they want to offer you. That's the honest truth. That's the hard reality.
Yeah.
Is you're not good enough yet.
Yeah.
Yet. And so for me, I feel like if we're very like, objective with our kids and go, hey, listen, this is where you're at. Let's check all the boxes of things that we can control. And then everything else will come. And so I'm always like, okay, what are our habits? So this is what I use for my son. Starts with training. Okay, give me the days you're training. What are we working on? Let's know exactly what our measurements are. So the first thing he did right after season, 2 weeks after season, he went in and tested.
Yeah.
Vertical jump, his 40-yard dash, his L drill. So we know exactly where we're at. And we're working towards a number. So it's like, okay, now we're objective on that. So, and then we're gonna lock in our skill training, and we're gonna slowly ramp that. I didn't let him throw a football from the end of season until January, because I'm like, man, like I don't care if you're throwing the tightest spiral in December, like right? Let's do that in July, August, and so so that's that part. So that's kind of part one. Part two is nutrition. I think nutrition is a huge part of teaching, our kids and these athletes, how to reshape your body, because you can do it and it's not that complicated, but you have to monitor your calories. We got to know, what our calories are. We got to monitor our protein if we're trying to build muscle, right? We got to monitor our water intake. That's a big one for these high school athletes. Nobody drinks enough water. And, so we really want to make sure we're monitoring nutrition. And then the third part of this is accountability, and it's personal accountability. This is what I do with my kid. I go, hey, we're going to do a once a week check-in. So I was out of town this past weekend. On Saturday, we did check-in. So I called him. I said, all right, let's start with your workouts. Tell me what you did. Tell me about your nutrition. Dad, I didn't log my calories 2 days this week. All right. That's on you. If you're not getting the results, you're the one who decided not to do that. And then, we'll walk through, and that's my accountability check-in with him, just making sure he's taking ownership of his situation.
So it seems to me that, there's tensions between parents and kids, and it's just a natural thing. It seems to me like, one of the reasons maybe to have an outside coach work with you on some of these things is because they get to do those check-ins. Share some thoughts about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's anytime you have an outsider's perspective, it usually provides clarity, right? I mean, you think about it in kind of anything. That's why they have, in business deals, you'll get a third party to look at it. Hey, is this deal fair? You'll get somebody to look at it. And so, and that'll alleviate like the emotions and the feelings. Because at the end of the day, we want to reach a goal, a result. And goals and results usually aren't emotions and feelings. The emotions and feelings come from reaching the goal, but the goal is just the goal. And so for me, when I look at it, it's all about getting that athlete to take ownership. They got to own who they're becoming and how they're going to do it. They need coaching. So they need outside coaching usually to understand, like, what are those things that I need to be doing? And then hey, we're going to come in agreement on accountability. Mm-hmm. And you know what? If the 30-minute check-in doesn't work for you, I'm open to negotiate on that. You want to do a text? How do you want to do it? You're telling me you want me to hold you accountable. And so I just think having a third party do that dance with these athletes is so important. And what's hard is that when you look at the high school, and you came from the high school situation, when you look at the high school, they have so many athletes. Mm-hmm. And they are, if you think about their incentive, they need to win to keep their job.
Yeah.
And so it's typically not the coach's fault, right? And so what do? They project on the kid. And so to me, it's like, okay, let's take the athlete out of that situation. Let's get the incentives aligned. Like, you come to D1, you work with a coach to reach a goal, you pay more money, you stay here a little bit longer, then that coach is going to get rewarded. And so to me, the incentives are aligned. And then when you walk in, it's all about that athlete. It's not about the. And once again, I'm a huge team sport guy.
No, we
love
get it.
teams.
We understand what you're saying. Yeah.
But like, man, the coaches are aligned to have the team win, not necessarily to have the individual.
It's more customized for that athlete.
That's right.
So Will, I mean, I'm totally bought in as a parent. I've got, is my teenager should be doing this, this, and this, but my kid's 9. Not really. My kids are way beyond that. But if my kid's 9,
yeah,
I mean, when do we start this stuff?
Yeah, so we have tested this. So once again, to give a little background on D1, I founded the business in 2001. So we're 24 years old. Mm-hmm. Opened my first location in 2002. I've been training a lot of athletes. Mm-hmm. And when I first started, I firmly believe that you need to start training at around age 7. Because if you train, we have a program called our rookie program, ages 7 to 11, you can create fundamental habits that'll serve them the rest of their life. Proper running technique. We actually teach proper lifting technique on sticks. We do body weight exercises, proper body weight exercises. And for me, what that did was it set a foundation similar to gymnastics did for me. I would compare it very much so to gymnastics. It's like, man, your body control is so much better. So by the time you get into middle school and we're actually putting some weight on the bar, man, you know how to master that weight. And so we have a program here called our rookie program, ages 7 to 11. We typically like our rookies to train, 2 to 3 times a week. We don't want to overload our rookies. Try to make it fun, engaging, where you're laughing and you're cutting up. You're playing some games at the end that are relay races and getting our conditioning in. And then we have a program 12 to 14. We call our developmental program, and that's when we see an athlete who has hit puberty and they're transitioning. We will start weight loading. We typically, unless they've mastered the exercise, a back squat, a bench press, a hang clean, we will never let them go over their body weight. Mm-hmm. So if they weigh 100 pounds, we're never letting them go over 100 pounds as a general rule of thumb. And then once they get in that high school program, which is ours is 15 to 18, we'll have some 14-year-olds that are obviously developed that will graduate into our prep program. And we're going to do a full strength and conditioning cycle. These cycles, every cycle we write at D1 is 8 weeks long. It follows what we call periodization. You know what that is? So strength and conditioning follows a workout programming called periodization. It basically, in layman's terms, means you start at one period and you're going to end up at the other period. Mm-hmm. It's like dots on a map. Mm-hmm. And the way we're going to get there is we're going to load, and then we're going to not load. Then we're going to load, then we're going to not load. So it's like, man, we are going to follow a periodization program to get you to point B. So that's the way all our programs are written. They're all written in 8-week cycles, and we test every 8 weeks. And so the athlete can see their progress along the way.
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of what you said, because I think that you need to have someone give your kid, or give you, the parent, really an objective viewpoint of where they are athletically. Skill-wise, it's a little more subjective. You can debate with a coach about, whatever performance, but gosh, you need someone to say, look, this is their blind spot athletically. This is what's going to hold them back from making a team. This is what's going to hold them back from getting recruited. And I think that's so wise. And I just want to echo that and encourage it. And the other thing is, like you said, you're not going to get really customized work at their school. They're not going to be able to, the coach or even the sports performance coach is not going to be able to work individually and see what that kid's blind spots are and see what that kid's needs are, like a D1 can do.
Yeah, I think a really important thing to understand, we always want to be an extension of the high school program. So high school strength coaches out there, man, they are doing a great job. But I was on the phone with one of the, biggest high schools in Tennessee, and the strength and conditioning, he's like, Will, I don't have time to get to everybody. Yeah. And he's like, I'm trying, and it's like, man, we want to be an extension. Great. We love to help out. You only have so much time. We have a great facility down the road. We love to be that place. And we're very similar to tutoring. we're athletic tutoring.
That's great.
So if you, you got a kid and he's excellent in math, and he's like next level math genius, he probably needs to be pushed a little bit harder outside of the normal setting of high school, right?
Yeah.
And then you also have those kids that, man, they go to tutoring because I don't want to fail, right? I got to stay in school. And so I had a reading tutor. I was telling y'all that last night. I had a reading tutor. So and now I read 20 books a year, and I love like what that did. I had to get a little something outside of school so I could get caught up. And so for me, I look at where I like that for athletes.
That's great. Great analogy. It really is.
So we've talked a lot about strength training, and you've touched on speed, but speed development and explosiveness, all those types of things. How much should parents, focus on that as much as strength training?
It depends where the athlete's at. So I know we were talking about high school athletes. When I look at it is we try to train speed every day you're in here. We also train strength and power every day that you're in here. But there's different types of speed, as you guys know. There's linear speed where a guy, Justin Gatling can run whatever he can, in the 100. And then there's agility speed. You think of like Tyreek Hill, right? I mean, he can cut laterally like crazy. And so to me, it's so important to train both. So the way we do it here at D1 is twice a week we train agility. So Mondays and Thursdays we do agility with our lower body lifting exercises. On Tuesday and Friday we do a linear, so you're working your straight ahead speed. And when I look at how we're developing speed, it all follows a simple equation. It's pretty simple. Speed equals power, like how much force you can put in the ground, times length. You think about, a Randy Moss who has that long stride, right? Times frequency. Tyreek Hill again, how quick he's hitting that ground. And when you're looking at it and you're going, hey, if I can, every time I'm working on my speed, I need to work on those three things. And then I'll get a lot faster. And so we've seen athletes that have come in here and it's like all of a sudden the light bulb goes off because there's just some simple terminology so where they can go, okay, man, I'm deficient in my length. So I need to get a lot more flexible in my hips. I got plenty of power. This is very like common when we train the offensive linemen. You have like tons of power, right? And they're actually, a lot of those linemen are pretty frequent. They can hit the ground really quick. But it's like, man, they have no length, so we got to get you stretched out a little bit. So really try to follow a simple equation for the athlete to know exactly where they're at and what they need to work on.
So I met with a friend of mine who's a head golf pro, and this is golf he was talking about. And even golf has gotten to the point where they have combines.
Yeah.
Like and I said, I think the most important thing is what you put on tape and what your film says. But still, that's just the world we live in. They're measuring club head speed.
That's right.
Or they're measuring distance. If you can't hit the ball certain yards, you're not going to be looked at as a D1 prospect.
That's right.
So that's just the way it is, and it's like that for every sport.
That's
so
right.
when you guys look at an athlete, especially a high school athlete, and they have a goal of playing college, do you guys kind of set those baselines that that they need to hit to kind of give them that idea of where they can be?
We do. We have data from 20 plus years of where these athletes need to be. And so for me, when these athletes come in, it's not about where you're at. It's about, where you're going to be, to go back to the training process. So you come in, you get tested. We'll sit down with you after that assessment and go, hey, here's what we think we would prescribe you into. And when you come into a D1, you can consume in a couple different ways. We have our group settings that I mentioned earlier, which is rookie Devo prep, and we do train a lot of adults. A lot of these parents come in here like, man, my son, daughter's getting after it. I better get in shape too. And so we train in large groups, and then we'll do semi-privates. We have a lot of athletes that'll come in and they'll have a couple there's nothing better than working out with a couple of your buddies.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, hey, we're four guys and we're focused on our football and we're going to come in here and train together with the coach. And then we do one-on-one. And obviously that's the most customizable because you're just dealing with one person. And we follow a workout program. We're partnered with a company called Team Builder. They do. They're the workout software for most Division I colleges out there, and so they're our partners. When you walk in, you'll get a Team Builder account with all your workouts in it. Know exactly what your weights are and where we're going.
So, Will, this is great stuff. As we kind of wrap up here, tell folks how they can find D1 if they're looking to go the next step with their kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think well, first of all, go to d1training.com, and check out a facility near you. We currently have 131 locations. This year, we plan to be at 200 by the end of the year, and we are hyper focused on having athletes reach their goals. People ask me like, "Hey, what's your goal? How many facilities? What do you want it to look like?" I was like, "Man, I want every kid to reach their goal at D1." Now that's aspirational. I know at some point, but like that's the way I truly believe. When you walk in these doors and you put in the work, and you come, like, man, we want you to reach that goal, whatever that is. And so, man, we would love for these athletes to come in here and get exposed to some world-class coaching, to understand what they need to do to get there, and really take a season to develop their bodies, because I do think it'll be a game changer. It'll be every single one of my kids, I make them do it, and it's so good for them. It's so good for them to train.
If you're someone who has a goal to possibly be a D1 coach, what are you looking for in your coaches, and how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, great question. So,
you helping them recruit here?
Yeah, maybe.
Man, if you're,
I'm thinking about a second career. I'm thinking about going into this.
Look, to me, you asked something. If you're out there, and to me, a coach has to have a servant mindset first, because it can't be about what you did on the field it's got to be what you can help someone else do. And typically coaches know how to do it better than the athlete, and typically coaches know exactly what to do better than the athlete. And it's like, man, what a servant mindset to be a coach, and to give that back, and to be behind the scenes in the weight room, not in the glory, not where the fans are, that to me is like the greatest calling. And if you feel called to that, like, reach out to us, because we're looking for great coaches that inspire and motivate these athletes. And once again, I found my home in the weight room, and then I created it into my life. Right. And so this business, has such a real purpose behind it, real purpose driven. I tell all of our franchisees, we're on a mission. We're on a mission to change athletics. And we're going to change athletics by training one athlete at a time to reach their goal. And man, when you have that mindset, and you're a coach out there, and you want to like come and be a part of that, man, we want you here. But a couple qualities, since you asked, I mean, like, my number one thing is, can you connect with people, even over education? Like, do people want to listen to you? And people come in different forms and types, but then obviously you got to have a base level of knowledge of strength and conditioning. And then the third one, which is I think is pretty funny. I like to have a little bit of that WWE personality, like you want to show up and you're like, oh man, what's this guy going to do? Is he going to, jump out of the bushes and scare me? That's what you want. You want a coach who's, you're like, man, he inspires me. I want that juice. Those are the best strength coaches, man. They're a little out there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Well, love that. Love your mission. It is, as we said at the beginning, it aligns perfectly with our mission about trying to change youth sports, and one family at a time. And another way we're going to do that, and we've talked about this before, but we'll be introducing our PA Plus program here in the next month. And you guys are going to be part of that program, and going to be offering some micro lessons on different aspects of training, even more than we've had a chance to talk about today. But we've talked about some great stuff today. Will, thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Hey, really want to say thank you to you for what you guys are doing. I know we kind of hit it off right out of the gate. I just love the message you guys are preaching. My dad preached multi-sport. He preach, doing it the right way, having discipline. He teaches, hey, if you want it, you can go get it, but you have to put in the work.
Yeah.
And I love the message that you guys are preaching. So keep going. Thank you guys so much.
Well,
thanks
so
for
much.
having me. Really appreciate it.
We appreciate it. And thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.